have this dream that my future home will have a cookie jar. In this jar will be fresh homemade chocolate chip cookies, ready for whoever's visiting that day. There's just one problem. I've never baked a cookie, or any dessert from scratch. So, because I'm overly ambitious, I'm going to bake 3 types of desserts until I find or make any that become a forever recipe. Those desserts are a cake, a brownie, and of course, the chocolate chip cookie. My favourite type of cake is not so readily available in the UK, so I don't get to eat it very often. That cake is a 3 leches, or 3 milk cake. This is a sponge cake soaked in evaporated, condensed and whole milk. Hence the whole 3 milk cake thing. It seems relatively simple, only I've had recipes of this in my YouTube liked videos for years and haven't attempted it once. Until now. I pulled up Josh Wiseman's video and bought all the ingredients I needed. Except vanilla extract, which I thought I had, but has apparently been expired and on my shelf for over 4 years. Josh whipped out a fancy looking stand mixer while I grabbed a fork, but we're gonna make it work. And then I found a hand mixer in a small dark corner and used that instead. But I was only making a simple little sponge cake, so nothing could go wrong, right? Right? Wrong. Either the oven was too hot or too cold, but the cake did not bake properly. The outside was burnt, but the inside was just not done. Yeah, I'm still processing this one, and honestly at this point I was ready to just quit before I'd even begun, but we trust the process. And by trust the process I mean scrape off all of the burnt bits and drown it in milk. And to my genuine surprise, not because of the recipe but because of my sheer lack of skill or expertise, it turned out alright. A little rough around the edges, but still a 3 leches cake. Armed with parchment paper, vanilla extract that's not out of date, and the pitifully low standards I had created for myself, it was time for attempt 2. So these changes definitely made it better, but my technique was way off. I think I overmixed the egg whites, must have been distracted thinking about something, which meant the cake ended up flatter and denser. So when it came to actually soaking the cake in milk, it didn't absorb as much as I wanted it to. I was starting to lose hope at this point, but then something pretty incredible happened. My sister asked me to bake a 3 leches cake for her birthday. Now, this may not seem like a big deal, but as the first time I've been requested to make something, I must be doing something right. It's currently 7:41 and her birthday is tomorrow. And I don't know if we have all the ingredients in the house. So I think I should get on that. So naturally, I decided to pull out the big guns and use another recipe. I used Binging with Barbish's video. Moment of silence though for needing to use 10 eggs in this economy as well. Otherwise, you know the drill. BTEC hand mixer, fold in egg whites, and oh my god, this was the best one yet. So we get to take it a step further. To decorate, I decided to keep it simple, partly because the 3 leches cake is already pretty heavy, partly because I did not want to test my luck at this point. So I went with strawberries and cream. I covered the strawberries in sugar, there's a word for this that I can't remember, and although I struggled, smeared cream on top. I could have chopped up the strawberries for a more symmetrical cake, but it was super tasty anyway. It reminded me of the strawberry cake emoji, and most importantly, my sister loved it. So I call that a win. An old coworker offered me a Reese's peanut butter brownie. I remember thinking it was one of the best brownies I've ever had, so I asked her for the recipe. That was 3 years ago. Anyway, I didn't have butter, so I used the next best thing. Yeah, I'm really not sure what I was thinking. I also completely misjudged the bowl to batter ratio, so I had to switch to a more appropriate one. Now I look very happy here. Cheeky little taste test. But this is where it all goes downhill. I poured the batter into my big tin and it barely covered the bottom. I tried to move it into a smaller tin, but it was carnage. Spilt everywhere, not a fun time. And honestly, I felt super demotivated. I tried it and it made me question if I even liked brownies, which is not ideal. So I gave up and went on to The reason why this whole thing started, the chocolate chip cookie. My aunt makes great cookies and sent me 32 recipes, but to test the waters, I planned to make a standard one and see if it was actually edible. I pulled out my not stand mixer and oh my god, I enjoyed this baking process so much. I did not expect cookies to be my favourite dessert to bake, but I think it is. I was going to be a responsible adult and use half a cup of chocolate chips, like it suggested, but then that didn't really go to plan. My aunt also made sure each ball of cookie dough was even so they baked properly, and I kind of did that. Sort of, not really, but they actually looked like proper cookies. A little thinner than I wanted, but this is definitely the best first attempt so far, and I was so proud. Am I starting to get the hang of baking? Now, sometimes less is more, but sometimes you just need to smother things in mini eggs, so I decided to make the cookies again. This time though, I went into a cookie deep dive and learned a little bit more about the technique. Browning the butter, refrigerating the dough, cutting up bits of chocolate alongside adding the chocolate chips for those little pockets of chocolate inside the cookie, letting it cool in the tin because apparently the baking process continues when it's out of the oven, and voila, a homemade chocolate chip cookie. Oh, that's so good. That's the best thing I've baked so far. That's delicious. That's so good. One thing I'm not is a quitter, so I decided to go back to the brownies but with a new recipe and flavour profile that has never failed me. Oreos. This time I actually looked at the recommended pan size and adjusted the ingredients. I also learnt a lot about brownies. Never realised there was a whole cakey versus fudgy debate. And the results? We'll get into that. First, let's appreciate the beauty. Yeah, this restored my faith in brownies and made me question why I ever doubted them in the first place. And that's all 3 forever recipes. So, the takeaways? Bakers, I've always admired your work, but this has brought me a newfound appreciation for the craft. Measuring ingredients so precisely, experimenting with flavours, the time it takes to make something from scratch, and actually mastering the technique of how to bake properly, it's truly incredible. Yes, I might be looking at pictures of stand mixers every day, but baking has been such a relaxing activity, an intentional activity, and it made me feel good, better than scrolling on my phone ever has. I also got a tote to hold all my baking stuff now, which is already filled with loads of ingredients, and I think that's really, really cool. I don't know what that says about me, but it's cool, okay? But the true core of baking for me was sharing the food with others. I got so much joy from having the people in my life try and actually like what I made. Handing them the food, waiting for them to take a bite and see their reaction, being asked to make something again, and then suddenly it wasn't about the cookies or the desserts anymore, but the love and connection that comes from it. I guess I never really needed the cookie jar after all.